Hello, Clearview family and friends. I want to invite you to get a cup of coffee and or maybe some hot chocolate. I'm sitting out on the porch for a reason. When I first moved here, I had many finches, and I love bird watching. And as I was looking at the finches and turned in my book, I found two possibilities. They could either be purple finches or house finches. And as I read about them, they were so closely related that I couldn't distinguish between the two. I would be looking, I'd say, that's a purple finch. And then in another minute, I'd say, nope, that's a house finch. And then I'd change it again. I'd say, nope, that's a purple finch. And this went back and forth. The other day, when my grandchildren were here from Seattle, I decided to read more about them. And as I looked at the maps of where they live and roam, I found that the house finch does not even come close to circulating in East Texas. So I could not be looking at house finches all the while that I thought I had purple finches and house finches. I did not. All I had was purple finches. So now I know. Another thing I learned as I was trying to distinguish between the sparrows is that there are just zillions of sparrows. I have 6 pages of sparrows. There's a singing sparrow, a chirping sparrow, a grass sparrow, a field sparrow, a grasshopper sparrow, and a swamp sparrow. I have all these many sparrows, and I cannot distinguish one from the other. And so often I'll say something like, oh, that's just a sparrow. They're a dime a dozen. Well, Jesus says something very similar to that in Matthew chapter 10. In Matthew chapter 10, Jesus is sending his disciples out on what we call the limited commission. And under that limited commission, Jesus is not expecting that they're going to be treated any better than he was treated, nor is he expecting his disciples to be received any better than he was received. He says in Matthew 10:16, I'm sending you out like sheep among wolves. So he knew that their reception was not going to go well. A little later on, after basically telling them that things may not go well, they may be flogged, they may be jailed, whatever. He finally says, do not be afraid of those who kill the body but cannot kill the soul. Rather be afraid of the one who can destroy both body and soul in hell. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? And there's the phrase, 2 sparrows for a penny. A dime a dozen is more expensive than 2 sparrows for a penny. And Jesus is basically telling them those are not very expensive animals. They come pretty cheap. And then he goes on to say in verse 29, yet not one of them will fall to the ground apart from the will of your Father. And even the very hairs of your head are numbered. So don't be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows. And he's basically telling them that although things may not go well for them, he wants them to understand that they are very valuable to him and they are very valuable to the Father in heaven. That even though two sparrows are sold for a penny, even at that cheap a price, one sparrow doesn't fall to the ground without God knowing about it. I keep up with my birds pretty well around here. I watch them through my field glasses, look at them, and try to make sure I know what kind of bird they are. But I do not keep up with them that well. God keeps up with them so well that if one of them falls, he knows about it. And then Jesus goes on to say that he knows the very number of the hairs on your head. I don't know the answer to that, although it's a little easier to tell now than it used to be. God keeps up with us so well. We are so valuable to him that he knows the hairs on our head. So the next time you're feeling in despair, the next time you feel invaluable, that you're not worth much, that there are many, many other people out there that are much more valuable than you, I want you to understand that God loves you and cares about you, and he keeps up with you better than you keep up with you. And that's a wonderful thing to know, that you have a God that cares so much about you. So I got a letter this week from an individual who was dealing with despair and darkness in their life. And what they needed to understand was that God is their God and he is keeping up with them every moment of their life. And while we may think that a sparrow is not worth very much, God considers you much more valuable than they are. And God even keeps up with the sparrows when they fall to the ground. So, to our great God, you have a blessed day. Thank you for being with me. I'll see you next week.